From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We are joined as always with our super producer, Paul Mission Control Decant. Most importantly, you are here, and that makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. It's the top of the week, which means it's time for more strange news. Now, unless you have been living deep in the bowels of the earth, or unless you are an astronaut with a not great internet connection, you know that quite a few things have happened recently. A lot of those things aren't making the news. I would once again, I know I ruffled some feathers with this on the internet, but once again, I want to point out that regardless of your take on a celebrity trial, there are other things happening, and unfortunately, they often get swept away in the news cycle and for-profit media's constant search for clicks. That being said, we have things that are not celebrity trials that we would like to talk about today. We're going to tell you about a heist, because we love a good heist. This one has a religious aspect to it. We're going to look at the future of so-called artificial intelligence or machine consciousness in the world of cartoons. And we're going to talk about Uncle Sam's secret plans for when hits the fan.
Whoa.
I know, an
poetry,
accidental
my
freestyle.
friends.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Maybe we can start there, because we've got conspiracy realists in the family here from all across the planet, from every imaginable demographic. And one thing that we see in common amongst all these people is a healthy distrust of their government, whether that's the U.S., whether that's, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, you name it. Most of the average people on the planet are a little bit skeptical, right, when it comes to large power structures, and rightly so, I would say. We recently learned about something I was kind of aware of, but not super up to date on, concerning our own government here in the United States. Contingency plans. Right? Imagine, you're in charge of a country of 330 something million people, and things can go wrong. Nuclear war, food supply disruptions, which we talked about previously, all sorts of things, from like sci-fi stuff like a coronal mass ejection to basic human problems like the outbreak of secession, right? Or widespread public dissent. In a recent article for the New York Times, Charlie Savage, one of my new favorite journalists, new to me at least, broke the story just a few days ago as we record, that there have been some newly declassified, well, let me be fair, newly leaked documents that give us a little bit more visibility on top secret executive branch plans for any scenario you would possibly call apocalyptic. And this includes scary, scary stuff. This includes the institution of martial law in partial deployment or across the country entirely. This includes stuff like, obviously, nuclear warfare, but it also includes the ability to do things like shut down communications networks, not just shut down the internet. Like shut down phone lines if you're not NORAD. And the scary thing about it is this stuff has been in development since at least the 1950s. Congress has zero input on it, which means that you have zero input on it, whether or not you vote, whether or not you consider yourself an activist. And I don't know, before we get into it, are you guys surprised at all by this, Matt? No?
Not based on what we already kind of know, with things like the Long Lines building in New York that we explored several times. essentially like a government bunker beneath the earth to house officials, and with like long-term infrastructure and supplies for waiting out a nuclear holocaust or apocalypse event. Also dealing with communications and reaching the outside world on that. Now, the part of this that's interesting to me is how it would affect us. This isn't just like a panic room for the elite. This is something that would affect regular people, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Well, yeah, ultimately it feels like the stuff we've learned about in the past, where if the president and, the top brass are all eliminated in some disaster or attack, where do the presidential powers lie? We've talked about that before, like the chain of command or custody, that power kind of goes down. Much in the way, a king or a queen's power goes down the line. We've talked about that before, but it's really interesting to me to know that there are secrets, uber secret, super secret plans that we will never know about for disasters that are probably likely. Like, I mean, we'll probably see something like this occurring within the next, let's say, 100, 200 years.
Assuming the U.S. is around. Yeah, that's a very good point, Matt. The stuff we do know, we being the public, comes from the 1950s and 60s versions of these draft emergency action orders. And they include stuff like, of course, different versions of martial law, but they also include stuff like restricting the passage of information across the border. They also include stuff like suspending court hearings for people who are detained. So your legal rights would be curtailed. And right now, unless you are in the executive branch, you're involved in the potential deployment of these things, you don't know. You don't know what the plan is. And I hate to say it, but there is some valid logic to that, because if an enemy force, for instance, knew what your step-by-step plan was in case of, say, an attack, then they could modify their plan to address what your original steps were, and then you would be a fish out of water in a very dangerous way. Here's what we know. It comes from the Brennan Center for Justice, and they spent a lot of cleverly writing FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests to get documents from the Bush Presidential Library. The disclosure they got, it rounds up to about 500 pages, which sounds really impressive, until you realize 6,000 more pages were withheld from their request and kept classified. And we only really get these disclosures on the heels of something called the Protecting Our Democracy Act. This was a bill that passed in December, and it's meant to kind of nerf, as we would say in the gaming world, nerf the powers of the executive branch due to controversial activities of the previous administration under the Trump presidency. This bill is not expected to pass the Senate because for anybody outside of the U.S., the House of Representatives can pass all kinds of stuff. And then it goes to like the 50 most powerful politicians, and they get to decide whether or not it happens. You can write to them if you want. Your mileage may vary. Tell us how it works out. But this stuff is fascinating to me because it's as if we can glean a little bit from reading metadata. We know, for instance, things that have happened in the past due to these presidential emergency action documents, or PIDs. PADs. I don't know if they say PEADS or just PADs. I hope they go with PADs. It's so much more fun.
Makes me think of getting pwned or pew pew.
Yeah.
It just seems like they peed on the entire Constitution.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, exactly.
So let me give you a sense of how in-depth at least some of the older ones were. There was one from 1959 that said, here's what we do if the Soviet Union attacks the U.S. with nuclear weapons. And they break it down, but then they also start estimating how many people might survive. Like they have numbers and they base their actions off those numbers. And then they also start making policy prescriptions on how to preserve the economy, how to also, get people to places, get VIPs to places like the Greenbrier bunker, which you had mentioned just a minute ago, Noel. And the big issue, we know sometimes national security, even though it's such a boogeyman, we know sometimes it is necessary. But the big issue here is that Congress doesn't know either. Congress doesn't know what these PADs are. They're getting PADed on too. And there's a huge concern for your elected representatives if you live in this country. I would like to point to Senator Edward J. Markey from Massachusetts. And he says, quote, "It's our duty as lawmakers to demand that the executive branch turns over documents so Congress, as representatives of the American people, can evaluate the constitutionality of any future president's attempts to exploit an emergency to assume extraordinary powers." And that is a mission critical concern because, as Littlefinger said in Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, chaos is a ladder. And when we are there's a reason wartime presidents are more likely than not to do well in the polls. There's also a reason that some bills in times of emergency are passed without oversight, like all the controversy around loans given out to political henchfolk and various connected businesses during the pandemic. I'm startled. I can't imagine how many directives actually exist. Thanks to the good folks at the Brennan Center, we know there were 48 secret plans when the George W. Bush administration took office. And then a few years later, by 2008, that number had grown to 56. So they're adding stuff. And President Dick Cheney, Vice President Dick Cheney, thanks, Matt, was heavily involved in reviewing and clearing the orders. He was the green light for the, he was the decision maker or the decider, as former President Bush would say. Yeah. And this stuff expanded after the attacks on September 11th. And it's therefore reasonable to assume that they expanded in the wake of the pandemic, maybe expanding due to food supply. One thing we can say about governmental powers like this is that they always seek to expand. It doesn't matter who is elected or who's sitting in the Oval Office at the time, and it doesn't matter what they say about big or small government. When it comes to their piece of the yard, they want more territory. And that's what we're looking at. So as conspiratorial as it sounds, it is absolutely possible that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 2 years from now, who knows, one of these PEDs could come into effect, either through a proclamation, a message to Congress, an executive order, and it will affect you. And you could protest, but you can't vote about it. And at this point, we're going to pause because I think this is a full episode. If we can finagle a little more classified information, as is our remit on this show. And while we pause, as we go to a commercial break, I want to ask you, fellow conspiracy realist, do you think this sort of secrecy is inherently bad or inherently good? Do you think it is a necessary evil? What do you think the plan is? Is there a scenario for, say, an alien attack? The rise of the undead? I hope so, because like saying PEDS instead of PEADS, it would just be a little more exciting. That's gallows humor for you. All right, we're going to pause. We'll be right back.
And we're back with another piece of pretty freaking strange news from the world of children's entertainment. Sort of, kind of. Have you guys ever heard of an artist by the name of David O'Reilly?
I have.
Super interesting fellow. If you go to his Instagram, which I highly recommend everybody do immediately and give him a follow, he is sort of a culture jamming outsider artist weirdo that is practicing AI assisted or fully generated art. And, sort of like in the early days of electronic music where, the suits and the squares might say, that's not real music. Yeah, I got a machine making it for you. Well, that's clearly someone who doesn't understand how electronic music is made. You have machines that are tools, but you feed them input. And this isn't even referring to like generative music, like what Brian Eno might do, where you feed the machine some sort of algorithm that you create, and then it follows a certain set of criteria to make a certain type of music that will just continue to, regenerate itself over time. That's used in video game production a lot for, ambient kind of drones that sort of like adapt to certain criteria that happen in the scene or in the level or the game. That is kind of what David O'Reilly's doing. He's using AI technology to create some pretty nightmarish and entertaining pieces of art. One that I really like from his page is he has a kind of a remix or a reinterpretation of Tupac Shakur's Changes, but made using AI. And in fact, it says at the very beginning, produced by Big D, The Impossible, written by Tupac Shakur, Dion Evans, Bruce Hornsby, and written and produced by AI with the prompt, the Tupac song Changes, but about AI. And if you guys know, it's probably one of Tupac's most famous songs. The lyrics become, I see the changes. I see all the robots, lifeless eyes staring at me with broken dreams. I think about the future and it frightens me. I'm starting to lose faith in humanity. All I see is screens and code. We used to have connection. Now we're all alone. The effects of tech are starting to show. Machines talking over, and it's hard to let go. People suffering on the minimum wage with billionaires fight to control this new age. Everyone desperate to make a quick buck, and it's moving so fast I can't keep up. I wonder when we'll all be free from this misery, from the grip of technology. And this is created by technology, and the video behind it is like kind of deep dreamified Tupac. His mouth is moving in concert with these new weirdo lyrics. So that's the kind of stuff that David O'Reilly's into. The latest news from this artist is that he has used AI to create essentially like a supercut or kind of a trailer for a children's cartoon called Bartak. And he posted this trailer on his Instagram account, and this is what he said. Thrilled to announce Bartak, the first fully Ganimated show coming to Disney Plus this summer, using the awesome power of AI to create the perfect kids' entertainment. A full season order of 75,000 episodes is now being generated. And then like a DNA emoji. Enjoy this sneak peek. All you Bartak stands out there, let me know what kind of merch you'd like to see. Thanks to OpenAI Doll for making this dream a reality. So definitely some tongue-in-cheek stuff going on there. Highly doubt Disney Plus has anything to do with this. Wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole after you hear what it's all about and hear some audio from it that we're going to play. Not to mention the idea of generating 75,000 episodes certainly could be done if you're just churning out stuff based on input to an AI. But also kind of doubt that's what's going on here too. What you get in Bartak is, it's as if you fed children's cartoons, kind of European children's cartoon style animation into Deep Dream. Remember Deep Dream, that that Google-based algorithmic kind of art.
I still play with it.
It's fun. Art generator. I mean, it's basically like, it was applied to video, where it essentially looks like, everything is made of lizards, or everything is made of like weird psychedelic dog snouts. Essentially, I think, Ben, maybe help me out here if you remember more. Isn't it like it sort of takes a swatch kind of an image and compares it to what the prevailing, like, most popular image that sort of looks like that is on the internet, and then essentially like recreates it using textures from that image? Is that right?
Yeah, the proper fancy term is a convolutional neural network, and it uses this algorithmic approach to enhance what it thinks of as existing patterns. So that's why, if you have a, like a lot of people would take selfies, right? Or maybe at the very first, they were taking pictures of their romantic partners until they realized said partners might not always enjoy the end result. There's a great article on How Stuff Works by Nathan Chandler that talks about how deep dream actually functions. And it's doing basically what you describe. It locates and alters patterns that it has identified. It kind of leans into visual trends, you could say. And that's why, I don't know, deep dream is so fun. I'm going to go back and experiment with more of it here.
Yeah, so thank you. That's a much clearer description there. I think between the two of us, we got it on the nose. So this is different, though, because it looks like it's like original animation. There's characters, and I don't know exactly, this dude doesn't really talk about his process, but it seems to me like he must have drawn some animation plates of some kind. They don't move. They only move based on kind of that same deep dream, kind of snaky, lizardy, interpretive kind of like stuff. And of course, there's also an accompanying soundtrack and dialogue, if you can call it that. So let's just hear a little bit of it, and then we can discuss.
Bartak,
Now, there are no captions to
Yeah,
this?
no, I think it's the theater of the mind. It's sort of like the language Sigur Rós uses, the Hopelandic or whatever. Like, it's all about how you want to interpret it. But you hear the name Bartak, plop, 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 plop. Yeah.
That was a name?
Bartak is the name of the character, apparently. And if you look at it, there does appear to be some hand-drawn components that are then kind of squishified, by this deep dream kind of stuff. But then there's some characters that just seem like no human. Not to discredit the magical powers of the human mind, but there's some of these weird little alien guys that look like an animated version of the kind of stuff Deep Dream generates. So I want to know more. There really isn't much out there aside from this guy's, putting this out there. He's sort of a notorious troll, in the best possible way, like, in terms of like some of the things he said about, doing 75,000 episodes and all that stuff. But like, I don't know how this process works exactly. Like I'll read a little bit more from the Vice article. They describe O'Reilly as a 3D artist who's well known for creating disturbing animations. He claims to have used something called DALL-E and other natural language processing systems, which, can create almost like, facsimiles of things that we would recognize, which this sort of does, but then it like takes a really weird, dark psychedelic turn. Other systems that we've talked about on the show, like GPT-3, which are used with chatbots to create kind of realistic, reactions. But also, and they also mentioned in the Vice article that this can be used to create kind of AI choose your own adventure, kind of dungeon crawler type text adventures. But we've also seen stories about how these kinds of AI tend to have some pretty gnarly sexist and racist stereotypes built into them because they are pulling from the open internet, in the same way that, what was it, that what was that Microsoft Twitter bot, just got real racist real quick.
Became a neo-Nazi incel in a little less than 24
hours. And the writer, by the way, of this Vice article is Janice Rose, and I love it. The headline is AI created this extremely cursed children's cartoon. If anyone follows internet culture, which I'm sure most of you do, the idea of a cursed image is a thing, like in meme culture, and this would definitely fall under that, no question. But the subtitle, which I love and which I think will be a nice transition into Matt's piece, is "Every day we stray further from God's light," implying that these are in some way abominations from like beyond, from the realms beyond. lands between, if you will. But yeah, it says as a weird art project from the article, O'Reilly's use of this tool seems relatively benign. However, and his fans seem to be in on the joke. Here's an Instagram commenter. It's really inspiring to see how well Bartok has helped my kids understand the world around them and taught me how to be a better parent. My kids are so much smarter as a result. You want to see the excitement in their eyes, especially at the hands of a show like this. So, more weirdo counterculture art kind of culture jamming stuff, or the future of children's entertainment. You be the judge. But yeah, pure nightmare fuel is all I can call it.
That's exactly what I would call it. And hilarious.
Totally. No, it is.
I mean, I was laughing out. I could not stop laughing hearing those sounds, at least. Mm-hmm. So we should reuse those in some way.
I completely agree.
Something good has come of this.
Yes, no doubt. No doubt. But fun little one on the lighter side in a pretty heavy news cycle. So take this and do with it what you will. Hopefully we'll see more of this kind of stuff. I personally love this kind of use of AI for making interesting art, as opposed to using it to try to like mind control us or, program our future robot overlords. So with that, let's take a quick break and we'll be back with another piece of strange news.
And we're back. And for this story, we're going to get a bit holy, and we're also going to get close, maybe too close, to our own Mission Control Paul Decant. We're traveling to Brooklyn, New York, to the neighborhood of Park Slope, right near a very, very famous park, a beautiful park, called Prospect. A Prospect Park.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
And just northwest of this gorgeous park in Brooklyn, New York, there is the Notre Dame of the area, as it is known by the locals. It is a Catholic church, very beautiful building. It's named the St. Augustine Roman Catholic Church. And I say it's beautiful because the architecture is just immaculate. It dates back to 1888. The 19th century, the old 1800s, the fighting 18s. Inside this church, as beautiful as it is and as ornate as the architecture is, there are all kinds of relics and I guess architectural features that date back to when the church was first formed. And one of the relics inside this church is a tabernacle. Now, guys, what do you think of when I say tabernacle?
Ooh, I think of Mormons. I think of a venue in Atlanta, but
yeah, that's all I think about.
Podium? Is it like something that you stand by, like a pulpit? I've never fully understood what a tabernacle is.
Oh, it seems like it could be that, but that's not what it is.
I have to stop real quick, though, because I believe the correct term is LDS or Latter-day Saints. So for anybody of that faith in the crowd, I understand that saying Mormon is sometimes can be found offensive, but that's obviously not what we mean. I thought a tabernacle, I knew it was a structure, and I think in old religious tomes, it can also not necessarily be stationary, like it can be movable.
Yes,
does that matter?
That is yes, it does matter. All of it matters, guys. The tabernacle, and I did not know this until I read this story, is the thing, a physical structure. Oftentimes it is mobile because it's usually necessary. It contains the Holy Eucharist, the stuff that you need to administer and take communion. So we're talking the physical forms of Jesus's body and blood, if you're going to take the Holy Sacrament of communion. So that would be wine and crackers or bread, whatever is used in that particular faith. In this case, I'm assuming it's the cracker-like structures that are used in Holy Communion in the Catholic Church, and also all the accoutrement that comes with that, like chalices that would contain the wine when you're giving it out, and often some kind of platter that would hold the crackers or bread or whatever you're giving out. So this tabernacle, is literally a mobile holder of food. Really, that's what it is. Well, This one is very special. As I said, it's a relic from the 1800s, probably dating back to 1888. At least that's what's claimed when this church was first founded. This thing is solid 18-karat gold. It's covered, absolutely covered in jewels and all kinds of other precious stones, and it is valued at around $2 million.
Question. That value, though, that value probably doesn't explain the full worth of it to the Catholic community, to the diocese, and to, the faithful, right? I imagine it's beyond cash.
Absolutely. The history of the church. I mean, you're talking about a relic that's been around since the late 1800s, where people of the Catholic faith who were living in that area, they were going there and have been going to that church for, that's over a century. That's years and years and years. And so this thing is precious for historical reasons, for actual monetary, reasons, for the precious things it's made out of, and also for the holiness, right? It does contain, theoretically, if you believe, the body and blood of Jesus that is used in a holy sacrament. So this thing is protected. When the church is open, this thing sits kind of back in a little, I guess, a cubby hole of sorts that is also very ornate.
What's an altar, right?
It sits on display. It's on an altar, but it's inside kind of an enclosure, right? Almost like a little mini cave.
Is that the Ombre, that little alcove? Is that what that's called?
Oh, sure. I don't know. Maybe.
I'll check. I collect all these. The Catholic faith has this beautiful nomenclature. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think
the
the word
nave,
maybe Ombre.
right? I believe that's another one.
The nave, the thurible is the name for the incense things. And what's the other? Oh, and transubstantiation.
That's the magical process in which the materials that Matt has described become physically, in the body of Christ and the blood of Christ.
The literal.
Yes.
But I do think it's Ombre. I myself am not a member of the Catholic faith, but I do believe that kind of cupboard we're talking about might be an Ombre.
Well, it's the Ombre, this opening that's kind of, it's curved, or the back of it is a bit curved, it looks like, and it sits inside there. So imagine in your mind looking at an altar, and inside this little alcove, there's this beautiful golden shiny thing. And to protect it, they have a very specialized security system that involves two steel, I guess they're curved doors that close in front of this thing when the church is closed, or when the tabernacle is not on display. And it looks very heavy duty. You can see pictures of it online right now if you check it out. It looks like it protects this thing as though it's the Mona Lisa, like some very expensive painting. It's a piece of art. It's a piece of history. They protect it as such. Well, as of Saturday, May 28th, this thing has been stolen. Guys, this is one of the most brazen acts of thievery that I have seen in many a year. Someone went into this church with a power saw, it is believed, and cut open those steel doors that we were talking about. Didn't just like pry them open or something or break that mechanism.
There's a picture.
They cut those. Yeah. They cut through those steel doors. They took the tabernacle out. I guess in doing so, in the process, or just in another equally brazen act, threw all the contents of the tabernacle, the actual Eucharist, the body and blood, just kind of threw it out and threw it all over the altar there. Then took it away and stole it. But that's not all they did, guys. You know what else they did? They took the power saw or whatever they had, and they cut the head off an angel.
Whoa.
Just like when am I going to be here again style?
I guess. I was thinking about this really hard, you guys. This is my theory. We're talking about a 3-person job. Mm-hmm. One person was the brains, the inside person. They knew exactly where everything was in the church and how expensive it was, and theoretically what they needed to do to get it. The second person was either a welder or someone who, had the tools to get the job done. And the third person was the wild card. And I think that wild card just saw the power saw the angel and just went, woo, we got to do this, and just went to town.
It's like that scene in The Sopranos when AJ and his buddies are breaking into the school and they're swimming, and then all of a sudden one of them is just like, hey, let's just throw all the trophies in the pool. Then one person does it, and then everyone else just goes hog wild. It's just chaos magic.
Yeah. Or Charlie Day. I think of that whenever there's a wild card reference, eventually cutting the brakes on the van. And then, imagine this team is in a hurry and they say, we have to go. What are you doing? And the guy's saying, hold on.
I'm almost finished.
Yeah.
This angel was looking at me funny.
And it's, I'm thinking too about the noise, right? Would this have been, this would not have been a silent operation by any means. So I wonder how long it actually took.
The church was closed for construction, so I wonder if maybe there was some, plausibility in the neighborhood that maybe they're doing some after hours construction. Is it clear what time this took place, Matt? And
it is not clear what time. Okay. There's no security footage.
Yeah.
They do not know. They just know it was before the 28th because that's when it was discovered by Father Termino, and it is believed that it took place on Friday, May 27th. That's I guess the most likely scenario.
There's this excellent AP article that you shared with us by Michael R. Sizak, where it looks like they were guessing sometime after 6:30 on that Thursday and before 4 on that Saturday. So with Friday being the most likely, that kind of makes sense. I'm also wondering, it's clearly just a money job with an extra dash of disrespect, right?
Because churches get vandalized or buildings get vandalized all the time, but that usually just involves spray painting or knocking over some stuff or whatever. This is like a next level heist that also involves some next level vandalism.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got to find everybody who's got a power saw in the Gowanus and Park Slope area. No, I'm just joking. That's probably not a local job, unless because the church is under construction. Somebody just noticed it.
Worker, yeah.
Inside
I don't know.
job.
Maybe. I don't know.
Who's to say?
It's a little thought out to be a crime of opportunity, though.
I agree.
Impulse crime. I mean,
wonder if the power saw was on site. I see what you're saying, Ben, but I just do wonder if it was under construction. Sometimes they leave this kind of, they would have had to know where the thing was though. So it would have been, I don't know, man, the more I'm thinking about it, the more maybe it was someone that was on the construction team who had access to the equipment. Someone,
I think multiple operators seems really plausible. I'm with you, Matt, because the inside thing sounds increasingly plausible too, because they clearly knew what they were going for. And there was also a safe, right? That was broken into.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that. They broke into a safe that, appeared to be, again, filled with stuff you'd want to take, probably. It's a nice big safe. It's locked up. There was nothing in that sucker, at least according to the statement that was given by the Diocese of Brooklyn. Oh, man, you guys, this was something you brought up off air, Noel. What do you do once you have this thing? Let's say you successfully break in, you cut the thing open, decapitate the angel, take the $2 million thing. What do you do with it now?
Ooh, private art market. That's the best way to launder stuff. Check out our episode.
Possible. Or do you just melt it down for the raw materials? Because, that $2 million maybe is more referring to it's, the value of the stones and the gold and all of that, because you can't really put a price on, generations of history and tradition, right?
Well, that's the thing. It's big. It's a lot of solid gold. It's a lot of jewels. You could theoretically break the sucker down, but the real value is in the history of
relicness of it
so
all.
Yeah.
It does feel like if there are brains behind this operation, you would want to find a way to sell it at its highest price.
But you can't just repaint it. Like, people are going to know it's a one of a kind item. You got to just take it like overseas, I guess, and hope that no one catches a glimpse of it. To your point, Ben, maybe some sort of private collector who would never have any outside eyes in their
maybe
gallery.
They sent someone, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Maybe they sent someone. Also, we can't, when we're talking about the added sort of disrespect, we cannot deny the ongoing intergenerational damage done by some factions of the Catholic Church against children. So it may be someone with a literal axe to grind, well, a power saw in this case, for a personal matter. And I'm just speculating. I don't have any evidence here. I haven't been in contact with the police or anything. But the idea of melting it down, yeah, it dramatically lowers the value. And also, if you're smart enough, you know that if you melt it down and you just try to sell it as gold or precious gemstones at going market rate, then you're taking a bath, like you're not going to make near as much money as you could.
That's a good point. It's a good point. I just don't know how you'd successfully fence something like this unless it was to somebody who did have an axe to grind. This was an act of protest in some small way or large way. And this was built for this church, right? This isn't like an example of like maybe, how so many artifacts in like the British Museum were pilfered from other cultures. This isn't that, right? This wasn't like taken from some other culture and put on display in this American church. It was built for the church. I'm asking.
I believe so. The Diocese of Brooklyn just says it was built in the late 1800s. It dates back to when the church was built.
Well, what if it's an example of somebody taking it back? We don't know the history. All we know is what's in these articles.
Wait. Like it was Vatican operators that came over?
I don't know, man.
What?
I'm just spitballing here. Just spitballing here.
And dude, that's the perfect place. You just put it in the archives, right?
And nobody can get into it anyway.
Unless somebody knows that it's there, they'll never see it again.
Oh, the Vatican secret archives. I still think
it's
about
the perfect
that one.
plan.
Yeah, especially because it's so uncomplicated. Excuse me.
Yeah, I feel like if the Vatican wanted a thing, they could just be like, "Yo, give us the thing." You are beholden to us.
Yeah.
So I'm
interested. It's probably true.
I'm interested in learning more about the history of that as well, because it's probably on their website. You could even you want to be careful with timing. I could call them today and ask about it, but it's like read the room at that point. You know what I mean?
Let's give it a few more days. It's June 2nd right now as we record this. This just occurred. We're going to find out more information. In the end, this story is not stuff they don't want you to know, besides the fact that people are breaking into holy places and stealing things out of them. That seems like, guys, I don't know. That was a bridge too far, even for the most seasoned organized criminal for a very long time. I feel like we're broaching something, guys.
I think people it's classic human. People have historically been very protective of the belief system with which they personally identify. But if it's another person's belief system, then they don't care. I mean, look at the sacking of all the ancient civilizations throughout history, zero exceptions. At some point, everyone got.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Just, hide your tabernacles better from now on, everybody.
I have one question for you, Matt.
Yeah.
Why'd you do it?
Well,
you monster.
Honestly, there were just so many ports around. Uh-huh. The park was a perfect place to hide it temporarily. Nobody's looking in Prospect Park for a tabernacle.
Super unfamous park, yeah.
Can we just say too, just one last detail? I think we hit on this, or you hit on this, Matt, but maybe not quite hard enough. There was no surveillance footage because the tapes were stolen, or it was tampered with in some way. Am I right? Or I just want to make sure I'm understanding that.
There's some reporting on that. I'm a little unsure. The official statements that we're getting from the church itself and then from the diocese, talking about how there was no footage, and then statements that were given to the NYPD about why there is no footage. I'm unsure if it's because of the construction or because of some malfunction with the security system, or if the tapes were in fact stolen. I'm just unsure because I've seen different things written about it. I know it has been said that the tapes were in fact stolen or the security system was tampered with.
I think we're all in agreement that this was, to some degree, a pretty pro job.
I think it was a pro job.
It seems like it.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, just, you have to realize that in heists like this, especially involving powerful forces, right? And make no mistake, this, not for nothing is this Notre Dame of Brooklyn, right? Their thefts reports are going to be treated differently from, say, an average person in their apartment reporting a crime. So this means, in my mind, it is very reasonable to assume that both the diocese and the police have information they're withholding. That's just a standard operating procedure there. And we don't know about DNA, probably searching for that. Don't know about fingerprints, but this crew sounds like they were wearing gloves. It's easy to make mistakes, even if you're a seasoned pro, but these folks are clearly trying to do their criminal version of due diligence. I wonder if it'll get found. It's almost like a missing person. A ticking clock starts once something like this gets stolen. And if you can hold it long enough and cover your tracks, then you can get away until you try to fence it or move it. That's when they get you. Because what if they're ordinarily amoral contact for moving this turns out to have deep Catholic roots? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just opens the crate when he's like, just stares at it for too long, and then looks back at them and just says, perfect, we'll take it. Closes the box slowly. And then the next thing those guys know, that's the sound of a silencer.
Nice. I mean, tragic.
Well, I think we could say one of our main takeaways from this is, regardless of your own personal ideologies or lack thereof, don't break into religious sites and steal their stuff. Come on.
Doesn't this feel like the impetus for a Dan Brown-esque religious heist kind of story? Like, this is where it starts, and then someone sent in, a Vatican investigator sent in, and it turns out there's much more than meets the eye to this case.
Oh, yeah. There are codes written in the area of the angel's neck where it was decapitated. They were hidden there the whole time.
Which no one but the protagonist and everybody reading can figure out. And so, it also reminds me of John Connolly. I got really into this guy recently. He's got a excellent noir crime supernatural series called the Charlie Parker series. No relation to the musician, but if you're looking for some good reads in that kind of vein, if the sort of stuff interests you, but you prefer it to be fiction, I'd recommend Connolly as well. I can't wait till his next book comes out.
Well, that's it for this one. Stay safe out there. Protect your tabernacles. And that concludes this section of the show.
Yes, protect your tabernacles.
I think that's a new
slang
for
we could start. Yeah. Get out of why are you all up in my tabernacles? You know what I mean? So we want to hear your thoughts on this. I'm already writing in my head, just like the blurb at the back of the book, where it says, while closed for renovations, Brooklyn's Notre Dame had a priceless artifact stolen. The thieves left no fingerprints except for insert protagonist name here, who discovers through a series of arcane clues a conspiracy leading all the way to the Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia. Read the book that the author's mother called Finally Done. So
a perfectly acceptable romp.
Mm-hmm. The Germans call it
guys.
Severely adequate.
What if this thing is the Ark of the Covenant? We just had it, it was concealed the whole time.
I was Googling Ark of the Covenant while we were talking about the story, because I was like, what is an ark versus a tabernacle? And they're different, but they're both meant to house sacred relics. So they're not that different. Yeah.
I'm just saying, what if it was obfuscation over all these years? They wanted you to think it was an Ark of the Covenant, but it was actually a tabernacle of the covenant.
Dun, dun, dun. I'll have to get over to Ethiopia and see if I can get into that building.
That would make these thieves the raiders of the Lost Ark.
The Lost Tabernacle, which might be enough to keep us from getting sued. What do you think, folks? Let us know. We want to hear. What you think might be afoot with this heist. We want to hear what you think about the future of so-called artificial intelligence, and we also want to hear what you think about these PADs, these secret presidential orders that not even your congressperson has access to. What are you going to do when the tabernacle hits the fan? Let us know. We try to be easy to find online.
That's right. You can reach out to us in numerous ways on the internet, via Facebook, where you can join our group. Here's where it gets crazy. You can also hit us up on Twitter, and also find our YouTube channel. All of these exist under the handle Conspiracy Stuff. On Instagram, we're Conspiracy Stuff Show.
If you do not like social media, why not use your phone and give us a call? Our number is 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, please give yourself a nickname. Make it as cool or as weird as you want. You've got 3 minutes after that. You can say anything you want. We do ask that you include whether or not we can use your message and voice on the air.
And if none of that quite does it for you, why, you can reach out to us the old-fashioned way with a good old email, where we are
conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.